It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
This next question is from Aaron. This is a good one. I think a show about future-proofing your retirement would be a good one. I sometimes wonder, what if all my planning hits a year like 2008? For those of you who don't remember, 2008 was a bad year in the market. What's the best way to plan for the worst in your retirement years? So his question is, how do I go about thinking through that? What are some tools, resources? What if I just get unlucky and I retire at the world's worst time to retire from a market standpoint?
Well, this is literally what we do for a living. This is the rubber meets the road. I think you guys, it cracks me up because if you follow financial media, it's so interesting because we've been in such a strong period, and I think we've been in such a strong period because of how bad 2008 was. Realize 2008 was so horrible that the wheels literally were falling off the wagon of the financial world. And because it was so bad, I think we've had a prolonged period of smooth sailing
Sure.
in a large part. And a lot of that has caused people to have a very limited memory, or maybe even they weren't even doing this to know what a down market feels like. Because even the pandemic of 2020, the markets just weren't down that long. Yes, they got hit hard, losing 35%, but they recovered so quickly that I think a lot of people might have slept through how fast the whole they didn't even have time to react. So there is potential for things to get bad because it's happened historically, and that's why when we do plans, think about this. When we use assumptions on the Money Guy show, we talk about 20-year-olds. You can count on about 10%, 30-year-olds 9%,
Sure.
40-year-olds 8%, 50-year-olds 7%, and then you're in your 60s, it might go down to 5 or 6%. What's going on there? And the reason is because every decade you get a little older, your risk profile is going to change because it's not only about how you build wealth, it's about how you keep wealth. So you will start adding more asset allocation, more diversity, more diversification. You're putting that type of risk mitigators in there so that you get to keep more of the capital you've created. That capital preservation becomes a real thing. And I think a lot of us, because I see it all over, like I said, in social media, where people think they're going to be in the, all the way up until they're 63 years old, they're going to be 100% equities. And then the day they retire, they'll then flip the script but they want to make every dime they possibly can and don't want to miss out. And we all know interest rates are low, so why would we ever want to put something in a low interest rate environment? The reason is once again, there's two sides of this thing. There's wealth building, and then there's preservation of capital, meaning keeping the wealth.
Yep.
And we all know that that's much harder than it sounds because you've heard me give the stats. Wealth doesn't say in general, it doesn't create legacy typically because second generation, 50% is gone. Second generation, 70% of the wealth is gone because people are not keeping wealth well. And I think a lot of it is because they don't understand risk mitigation whatsoever.
So when it comes to retirement planning, one of the things that we always tell our clients is that the better the information you can put into the system, the better the output will be. So one of the ways that you can future-proof your retirement is being realistic around what expenditures will look like. Because really, retirement is all about balancing spending and asset growth. If you can do those two things well, odds are you can retire and you can live in financial independence and financial abundance. So how often do you replace your cars? How much do you spend on travel? How much does it cost you to go to the grocery store? How much is healthcare? If you can analyze those things and be very, very conservative in your assumptions, and then you take all those assumptions and run it through some sort of simulation where you can look at different market environments. What happens if the market's really, really good? What happens if the market's really, really bad? How many of those potential scenarios get me to the end of my plan without running out of money? You can have a confidence level saying, yeah, you know what? I am okay to retire. This may be surprising for you to hear, but we have a lot of clients that retired at the beginning of 2020. I don't know if you know this, at the beginning of 2020, we did not know what the rest of 2020 would look like. None of those clients had to go back to work. None of those clients had to start their job back. We had clients that retired at the end of 2007 because we had done the planning and put the time in and stress test the portfolio. Even though 2008 was scary and it was uncomfortable and it wasn't a fun time, they knew that their plan was good before the craziness happened. It was good while the craziness was taking place, and it continued to be good after the craziness. So I think the best way that you can future-proof your retirement is planning very, very well as you plan to move into retirement.
Well, I mean, this is the future proofing is the abundance cycle.
That's it.
We're going to give you all the advice you need to get the plane off the runway, up and building wealth. Even we're going to give you all the autopilot skills where you can run this thing and build it and set the course for it. But there is going to come a point, and this is what I talk about. We're big 10,000 hour type people where it takes 5 years to build your profession, your expertise up to make money. It's going to take about 5 years to also wind this thing down to be an expert on how you're going to retire well. And it is one of those things where I think a lot of people, yeah, you can put your financial life on autopilot, but what if, because when you're talking about future proofing and you mentioned 2008, what if your retirement, you're flying into a tropical storm and you're like, whoa, I'm up here. This thing's on autopilot, but I just don't know if I feel comfortable landing this plane for the first time in one of the most volatile, scariest times. And that's always going to be the case. That's where taking the relationship to the next level, the abundance cycle, we know you're going to look over us and be like, yeah, we've flown into these tropical storms quite a few times. Here, let me help you.
Yep.
And then that's the co-pilot situation where we land this thing well. And that's what future proofing is, also knowing when to go pro and take the relationship to the next level. I know that sounds very self-fulfilling to us, but I wouldn't tell you if I didn't truly believe, because we've done this for a lot of folks.